Allee here with the new Anchorage 101s. In today's video, guys, we're going to talk about a really simple presentation that flat out catches a ton of bass. We'll get back to that in just a second. First, I want to talk about the rod and reel combo we're going to be using for the first season of the new Anchorage 101s. That's right, I said combo. I didn't say combos. We're going to talk pike fishing, bass fishing, walleye fishing, trout fishing, catfish, bluegill, crappie, you name it, and we're going to be using this combo. It's something that most of you guys already have. 6.5 to 7 foot rod, medium action, give or take a little bit on the rod length, give or take a little bit on the action. And our reel, as you can see there, is spooled up. Oh, the line's a little messed up. It's spooled up with braided line. What the braided line does with a setup like this is it turns it into like a sport utility vehicle. It's something that can do a little bit of everything. It doesn't do one thing great, but it does a ton of things well. So with this setup, we could pike fish, bass fish, walleye fish, even bluegill fish if we wanted to, by changing the size of the leader that we attach to the end of our braid. We'll talk about that more in depth in another video. Let's get to what we're talking about presentation-wise in this video. This bad boy right here, a Senko style worm, or a stick worm as some people call them, is absolutely deadly for bass. I mean, it just flat out catches fish. And when you look at it, I mean, look at that worm. It looks kind of silly. It doesn't look like it does anything, but the brilliance is in the simplicity. So what's going to happen where this bait is most effective is on the fall. So you cast it towards the structure that you think the fish are holding on, or the cover that you think the fish are holding on. It hits the water, and what it does is it falls a little bit slow, and these sides right here, they shimmy, and it's subtle, but it's just deadly. As soon as that shimmies down in front of fish, they attack it. So there's two different ways that I rig this bait. There's many ways you can rig it, but there's two ways that I rig it. The first way I rig it probably 95% of the time. First thing you need is an offset worm hook. This one that I've got right here is an extra wide gap. It's anybody that knows me knows that I'm a trocar guy. Anytime I can use trocar, if they make a trocar hook, let me put it this way. If they make a trocar for the presentation that I'm using, that's the hook I use. So what we do is I want you guys to see this offset portion right here. This is what I call the shoulder. Okay, so to rig it the first way, which I'm just going to call leadless, you thread it up to about right there. So that's about even with the bend of the hook. You pop the hook point through, and then you thread it up and onto that shoulder right there. And what that's going to do is save you a lot of baits. It's going to keep that in place. From there, you bend it right like that, and you pop it back through, and the end result, as you can see, is a really streamlined presentation. And the thing is like I said, when it hits the water, it's going to shimmy down, and it just drives those bass nuts. If you're fishing in a lot of cover, like some really, really thick stuff that this is going to get hung up on, a cool little trick you can do is pull the worm towards the eyelet. My big overhands are probably getting in the way. Pull the worm towards the eyelet, and then bury that hook point. Now you can put that worm through anything. One thing I will say when you have it rigged completely weedless like this is put a little extra pop in the hook set. And so it goes through the plastic. The other way that a lot of people like rigging this bait is wacky. And the thing is a lot of guys, they're going to look at this hook and see that I wacky rig a Senko style worm with this kind of hook, and they're going to think I'm nuts. You know, they use an octopus hook, or they use a different style hook, a smaller hook for wacky rigging. There's a couple reasons why I use the same hook to rig weedless as I do wacky. One reason is because it doesn't change how much I get bit. Flat out, I see no difference whatsoever in the amount of bites that I get. What I do see a difference in is how many times I hook up and the frequency in which a fish takes the Senko too deep. So when you first start fishing Senkos, you might not catch the little subtleties of when you're getting a bite, and using a bigger hook is going to keep you from gut hooking fish. So what you do for the wacky rig is you just look at the worm, try to find the middle, super simple. And then you just hook it through the middle. That's it. That's all you do to wacky rig a Senko. Okay, so real quick, I want to talk a little bit about brands when you're talking about the Senkos. Any company that makes a soft plastic has their own take or their own version on Senkos. Gary Yamamoto is the originator of the Senko. But like I said, every company makes them. The Senko style worms that I've been using here lately are bag limit baits. They're made in Longmont, Colorado. They're comparable to any other brand I've ever used, and they're made here locally. That's one of the biggest selling points for me, but it's a great bait. So let's talk about where to throw the Senkos and how to fish them. So a good way to think about how a bass relates to structure or relates to cover more so, because we're going to talk about pitching it towards the shoreline. What you want to find is somewhere that the bass can tuck itself in and feel safe. It's going to have cover overhead. It's going to, almost like if you're looking for a hiding spot to scare your little brother or your little sister, think about that underwater. That's the kind of spots that the bass want to hang out in, because what they are is they're ambush points. So when something goes swimming by, they can attack it without even being, without alerting the prey that they're right there. So you want to think about those ambush points. You want to pitch your Senko in, and I'll show a couple of illustrations about different ambush points on, let's say, a dock. So anyways, you want to pitch that Senko in, and all you want to do is let it sink. That's where the magic happens with the Senko. You want to let it sink, and while it's sinking, you want to intently be looking at your line. Anything that changes in your line from just dropping, set the hook. I don't care if it stalls out. I don't care if all you see is a little tick. And sometimes it's going to be blatantly obvious. The line's going to go 2 feet to the right. But anything that you see that's a little bit different in your line, set the hook. You know, hook sets are free. Let's say it's not a fish. Oh, well, reel it in and pitch it back out there. And another thing I do, guys, it's really important. After your Senko hits the bottom, let it rest for a couple seconds. Lift it up about 1.5 feet. Let it drop again. Maybe do that one more time. And then reel all the way back in and get it into the structure. Get it into the cover. Get it into where the fish are holding. Because, you know, a jerkbait, you can get, in clear water, you can get fish to really move for a jerkbait. Fish aren't going to move 30 foot for a Senko. So you really have to get into where the fish are.
Let's take a quick look and analyze this dock, guys. As you can see, I've got it surrounded with bullseyes and arrows. What the bullseyes indicate is good spots to cast your Senko style bait to and let it shimmy on down and work its magic. The reason I chose bullseyes for these targets is the closer you get to the exact spot you want to cast to, which is these posts that are coming down, the higher probability that you're going to get bit. The further away that you get, the harder these fish have to work to grab that Senko, the less likely it is that you're going to get bit. What the arrows indicate are the spots completely underneath the dock that are only accessible to if you can skip that Senko underneath the dock. Rest assured, guys, it's not tough to do. It just takes a little bit of practice. A Senko and a spinning rod is about the easiest bait you can learn how to skip, and with a little practice, I know you can do it.